Hi there, Linda here. There I am, nice and big. So, hey, here's a good question for you. It's the end of the day now for you for school. Hopefully, maybe it's this evening you're watching this, or maybe another day totally. But have you been using groups, breakout groups in your virtual instruction? And are you starting to wonder, should I be using them? Is there a better way to use them? Well, I'm going to answer those questions for you right here and now. Okay. So I'm going to kind of change this up a little bit so you can see this bigger. And the big question is, are breakout groups, virtual breakout groups, are they a waste of time? So to group or not to group, that's kind of what we're going to be exploring here. And if you do group, how can you make it really worth your time for your students? Okay. All right. So let's jump right in. Maybe I should preface that with who I am. I'm Linda Cortez, author and creator of Red Hot Math. I'm a math turnaround specialist, and now I have been helping a lot of schools and a lot of teachers beef up their virtual instruction. And so now I am a virtual instruction specialist as well. And if you haven't joined our Facebook group yet, it is Teachers Mastering Virtual Instruction. Join us there because there's lots of teachers sharing ideas. This happens to be a part of our What Works Wednesday segment, where every Wednesday either I or another expert will talk about something that is working in the field that you can latch on to, tweak, and use yourself to make your own instruction better. Okay, so now let's talk about these groups. Okay. So a lot of times when you say group work, you think of the projects that you were involved in. And so you see a lot of these kind of memes popping up on social media, like what I learned from group projects. And you can see that the green is huge and it's how much I hate people. Because maybe your group did not function well. Maybe it was a dysfunctional group or whatever. Okay. And then you can see the yellow portion is how to do the entire project on my own. How many of you felt like you were in a group like that where you ended up doing all the work because you were a leader, because you wanted to get the good grade and everybody else was just kind of messing around? Okay. So this might have been your experience. And then there's always, you think about the people in the group. Here's another meme that you'll see a lot. Every group project, there's the guy that does 99% of the work. That would be me. There's the one that says he's going to help, but he's not. There's the one who has no idea what is going on the whole time, but they're just kind of there. And then there's the one that disappears at the very beginning, and then all of a sudden they show up at the very end when everything is done. Okay. Well, obviously this is not the way you want your groups to be functioning. So I'm going to ask you to think about some questions. Okay. First of all, whenever you're going to think about grouping kids and what you're going to have them do, if it wasn't successful, think, did the task require group participation? That's a big aha. We can't just put kids in groups to put them into groups. And I know like on Zoom right now, some of you have really big classes, like maybe you have 37 second graders, or maybe you have even more than that. And so you're like, okay, I got to put them in groups so I can get around and talk with smaller groups and see them all and kind of help them. Okay. Well, make sure that when you do that, we'll talk about that tasks thing in a minute. Okay. All right. Another big thing is where were the groups formed for a purpose? Like, is there a clear purpose, and do the students know what that purpose is? Okay. Another one would be, did the students have clearly defined roles? Did everybody know what they were supposed to be doing, or was it just kind of, go in your group and talk about this or that? Okay. So we're going to talk about that in a minute. Okay, and here's another good question. Do the students know how to perform those roles that you give them? Okay, so we're going to examine each one of these and kind of help you find out. By the way, the material that I'm going through today is part of a bigger program that I did previously. It was a boot camp for back to school virtual instruction. And a lot of you may have joined that. And so today I'm putting a little bit more info into it, because every time I do a training, it's like, you do it once, and it's just like when you teach a class. Every time you revisit it, you think of more things to put in, you get feedback from your students, and you're like, okay, or you see things that people are struggling with that you didn't even think about. So you have more material to add. So if you were part of either the free masterclass or the boot camp, you're going to see a couple more things inserted in here, because they're things that I've actually come across or that teachers are asking me about, that I'm filling in the information for you, okay? And we'll talk about at the end. I'll tell you how you can get into that free masterclass, and it's a virtual class, so you can take it anytime, no pressure. Okay, so let's move ahead here. Okay, so first of all, let's look at, is the task good? So let's say you present kids with a task like this, okay? So there's some nice data here. This is obviously because the word problem is about middle school and it's math. It's probably a middle school math teacher doing this. And so, you have this information, and then you ask a basic question: what % of students own a pet? Okay, so maybe if you had 2 kids working on this, this might be an okay task for that. But if you're assigning something like this to a group, you're going to want to make some modifications. So here are some modifications, okay? So this is option B. Write 4 different math questions based on this data that require you to use percentages. So this is wide open, lots of variety. This is what you would call the high ceiling, low floor. So like anyone can get into this problem. And then depending on the ability and the knowledge and the skill of the child and their understanding of the concept of percent, they can go, they can fly with this. And then you're asked to make an answer key that you keep secret. And, kids like that kind of camaraderie of, yeah, we're going to keep our answers secret from the other groups. And then be ready to share the problem with another group. I'd even maybe add another thing in here where each student writes their own problem, they share with their group, they collaborate on the answer key, and then they maybe post their problems somewhere like a Padlet or a HyperDoc or a shared Google, something in the Google Drive that they can share with the rest of their classmates and work out. But do you see the difference? So it's clearly got, it says 4 different math questions, but let's say you had 5 in a group or 3 in a group, or you had partners. Just go with however many people you have and tweak that. Okay, so everybody has their little chunk, their little piece to do, and then they have something where they put it together and then they offer it out to other people. So there's a lot of accountability and a lot of sharing and helping each other that is like super built into this. All right, so the second question was, are you grouping for a purpose? So group students for a purpose. And so some of your purposes might be, actually is different kinds of whatever your purpose is going to fit the kind of group or will determine the kind of group that you use. So different possible groupings would be whole group, flexible small groups, partners, and then one-on-one with you. We're not really going to go into one-on-one with you right now. That's like a whole nother little Facebook Live, okay? But we will talk about the other ones, okay? So whole group is obviously not breakout group. That's where you're going to introduce skills to the whole bunch of them. It's where you're going to create common language. It's where you're going to model and demonstrate for them. And at the end, you're going to wrap up the learning and just kind of draw some conclusion and some closure to it. Okay, now here are your breakout groups. They're going to be flexible, like your flexible small groups that you have when you're in the classroom face to face. So you have your homogeneous, your heterogeneous, you have your student selected, and your common interest. And so, homogeneous would be if you want to practice skills, if you want to reteach, if you want to extend. Heterogeneous would be like that situation with the math group or the math problem that we just talked about. If you have a project you're working on, and maybe for some type of learning game that you're going to use. Student selected are great for extending a concept, high interest, and games for fun. And then common interest would be if you want to do some type of jigsaw, if you want to do resident expert, that sort of thing. Okay, so I'm not going to go into huge detail about this because when you take that master class, you have an opportunity to go a little bit further with it there. I'm just kind of trying to tweak your interest here and maybe give you a few little nuggets that you can take and act on immediately. Okay. All right. So partners are great for if you want to do think, pair, shares, if you want to practice a specific task, if you want to prepare for a whole group discussion, or perhaps working on a smaller project that's just for two people, partners. I think I should mention here before I go too much further is people are like, well, how do I do these breakout groups? Here is what, if you want to get really expert at your platform, go to the help feature and just search for the things in the, the features or the actions, the functions that you want to learn. And there are tutorials all over on how to do this. But in a nutshell, if you're on Zoom or most any other platform, there is a way for you to create the groups. There's a way for them to be created randomly. There's a way for them to be created. And then while they're created, you can move kids around from group to group. But then when you're with your Brady Bunch Gallery group, the whole class, there's a button you can click that will send them to their group so that each child is only going to see the kids in their group. They won't see you unless you decide to pop into their group. So you can go into each group and kind of check and see how they're doing. Then you can send a message out to them. You have a minute left, give them some kind of warning. And then when that warning time is up, you select that button again and you bring them back to the whole Brady Bunch group. Okay. All right. So just thought I would mention that to you. If you're like, I don't know how to do it, search on Zoom and find out. Okay. All right. So another thing you need to do is make sure students have a role to perform and assign them at first. And then once kids get to know each other, they might select or assign to each other, or you might try rotating those roles. It just kind of depends. So some roles that you need to think about when either grouping your kids or assigning roles is that someone needs to take initiative, a leader, okay? You need someone to give information. So the person who's going to be doing the researching, you need someone who's good at asking questions and clarifying and making sure everybody understands. You have to have someone who's okay with asking questions. So, well, what did you mean by that? I don't get that. Speaking up, maybe we should ask the teacher if they can't all understand something or if they're all struggling with something. And then someone who's good at summarizing, because how many times do you assign them, go talk about this with your group, and then come back and tell us what you talked about. So you have to have someone who's good at summarizing, okay? Now, when you do groups in your classroom, you probably have had roles. I've even seen where kids will wear a badge or they'll have something they set in front of them that says what their role is. And if you go somewhere like Pinterest, you can see that there are tons, like literally tons of different ideas for how you can do your, what roles you could give. Like I'm going to make this one, I don't know if I can make this really big or not. No, I can't. Yep. Okay, but there's one there in the middle, the one with the stars. And you see how you have a reporter. That would be kind of like the summarizer we just talked about. You have a group organizer. You have a note taker and a timekeeper. The timekeeper, I think, should probably have some other tasks to do other than just keep track of the time. But, you know, you can figure that out. Okay, so group roles. You also need to have some ground rules for when they're working in groups. And usually the less rules you have and the more clear and simple they are, the better. Listen carefully. Take turns and make sure everyone gets a turn. So I would, maybe if you have someone who is a leader in the group, tell them to leave their mic unmuted, and then everyone else has their mic muted. And, you know, after they get used to working in groups, you can relax on that one and they can all have them unmuted. You just don't want to have them all trying to talk at the same time. Have a way for them to take turns and make sure everyone gets a turn. Make sure that they know they need to give reasons for their opinions, and they have to have a way to agree and disagree and be kind and use the 3 before me to get the teacher help. I think, you know, you've probably used that in your classroom anyway. That simply means if you're new to teaching that they need to either ask 3 other people or find 3 other resources, go to 3 other places before they have to ask the teacher. Okay, and let's see what else. Okay, so you also want to make sure that you teach the expectations and the routines that they go through as they're working in their small groups. And a good way to do this is the first time you've taught it and you put them into groups, you're probably going to have that one stellar group, that one group that no matter whether you're watching them or not, they're doing the right thing. Okay, so the first time actually you put them in groups, you probably want to have that very purpose in mind, is just circulate through all the groups to find that one. Then when they come back, you say, oh my goodness, you guys were doing a good job. You were following the guidelines that we set. And I just noticed that group, blah, blah, blah. And that's another point too. Let the kids name their groups and get to know each other in that group. But have that one group sort of demonstrate, and it's kind of easy to do that on a lot of platforms. It will allow you to have co-presenters, make them co-presenters, and then adjust the view so that so that everyone just sees them, and then have them demonstrate exactly how they went through their group process so that the other kids can see and they know what to expect. Okay. And then another really cool thing to do is to celebrate the cooperation that leads to success. So make it very crystal clear to them that their success is due to the fact that they were working together. Now, don't make it up or create it or invent it, but when it happens, celebrate it and make a big deal out of it. Okay. All right. I don't know if I have any questions, and I meant to say up front that I wanted you to, let me see. I'm checking here to see if anyone is asking questions. You know, it doesn't even show in my Facebook. But let me check comments here. Nope, I don't see any. Okay, but when you watch this, if you have questions about anything that I've talked about, or you have suggestions, comments, you have better ways to do things, or you have an extension to an idea I've mentioned, mention it in the comments. And then if you think this is like really helpful to you and it might be helpful to other people you work with or that you know, or maybe even your child's teacher, share it, please, and share it in any groups that you're in as well. Okay. All right. So let me see here. What else do we want to talk about? Okay, so we kind of talked about the management and the groups and all of that. And I just want to mention to you that if you really like this and you'd like to get that free masterclass, go to my website, Red Hot Math. It kind of looks like this. Okay, there it is, redhotmath.com, kind of easy to remember. And you see that button that's right there on it's going to be on the left side. It says free back to school masterclass. That's the free class I'm talking about. And when you click on that, it's going to take you to a page where you enter your email, and then I will send you the link to attend that class. And I think you also get there's a little workbook that goes with it that you fill in. And then that puts you on an email list where I can continue to send you tips and notices of cool stuff that's coming up. Okay. All right. So I think that's it. That's it for today. Okay. So let me make myself big here so I can tell you all goodbye and wave. Okay. All right. So thanks. Have an awesome rest of the week, and just keep doing what you're doing and take a breath every now and then, and like, share, comment, and ask questions. Bye.